Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Nacho Problems, where we turn ordinary recipes into extraordinary nachos. I'm Nacho Queen, but you can call me M. It's a strange time of year here at Casa del Nacho. One day you're sure spring is here, and the next it's as cold as a polar bear's bum. We're in a string of cold days right now, so I thought we could use a recipe to warm us up. That's why this week we're making chili and cornbread nachos. Now I will confess, I actually don't like chili. But luckily for all of us, cameraman does and is willing to step out from behind the camera to show us how it's done. I'd like to point out he's still recovering from a broken ankle, so he really was a trooper to do this for us. Let's get started. Step 1. The cheese. Our cheese for these nachos is going to be the chili itself. For this recipe we need 1 can of kidney beans, 1 can of black beans, 2 cans of diced tomatoes. These are chili ready, so they've already got some spices added, 1 can of tomato sauce, 1 pound of ground beef, some cooking oil. He used olive oil because that's what we have. The amount of all the rest of the ingredients are to taste, but grab some brown sugar, hot sauce, Worcestershire sauce, minced garlic, salt, black pepper, chili powder, and ground cumin. Oh, can't forget the onion. He only used about half of this because it was a really big onion. We'll start by draining the beans and the diced tomatoes. Apparently I was supposed to do these separately, but hey, I'm not used to playing sous chef here. Luckily, he's flexible. Next, we're going to place a large pot over medium heat and start by browning the ground beef. Once that's done, remove it to a bowl. Now, I always buy the very lean ground beef, so there's rarely much to drain, but depending on what you use, you might want to drain off the excess grease at this point. Next, he's going to turn the heat down a bit and saute the onions in a little olive oil for about 10 minutes. Now, one thing that surprised me about this recipe is that he didn't add any bacon. Cameraman loves bacon, almost as much as he loves me. Or if I'm honest, maybe a little more. Every time I'm brainstorming a new recipe and can't come up with a topping, he's like, add bacon! Bacon goes with everything. Now he's going to add in about 2 tablespoons of minced garlic. He also really loves garlic. Now add in the beans and the tomatoes and continue to cook everything for another 4 to 5 minutes before adding 1½ cups of water and giving it a good stir. Now it's time to add in the spices and other flavorings. He used 2 tablespoons of chili powder, 1 tablespoon of salt, 1 tablespoon of cumin, half a tablespoon of black pepper, 1 tablespoon of Worcestershire, 2 tablespoons hot sauce, and finally 2 tablespoons of brown sugar to cut the acidity just a little. Now you add in the tomato sauce, return the ground beef to the pot, cover and let it simmer on low for about 2 hours. You should check on it every now and then and give it a good stir and add more water if necessary. And there you have it, a nice big pot of what cameraman and Olsen both proclaim to be very tasty chili. Now let's move on to step 2, the chips. For our chips, we're going to be mixing up a basic cornbread recipe. Now, whenever I'm baking, I prefer to use weights for my flour if the recipe provides them, which here in the US isn't very often, but this recipe comes from the King Arthur baking website and they did. So we will need 210 grams all-purpose flour, 156 grams cornmeal, 1/2 cup of granulated sugar. I doubled the amount because I'm accustomed to southern cornbread, which is much sweeter. 2 teaspoons baking powder, 1/4 teaspoon baking soda, 1½ to 3/4 teaspoon salt, 1¼ cups milk, lukewarm, 4 tablespoons butter, melted, 1/4 cup of vegetable oil, and 1 large egg. I'll start by weighing out my flour and cornmeal into a large mixing bowl, and then adding my sugar, baking powder, baking soda, and salt. We're going to whisk all of those together. Now in a separate jug, I'll combine my warm milk with my melted butter, the egg, and the oil, and beat them all with a fork to be certain that the egg is well integrated. Now I'll add my wet ingredients to the dry ones and mix until just combined. Now, instead of baking this into a loaf or muffins, we're going to try and fry it up like little pancakes to try and get crispy chips. So I've heated up some vegetable oil in a small pan and added 3 dollops of batter. Let them brown on one side before flipping them and pressing them flat to get them good and crispy. And that's it. Now it's time for step 3, the toppings. Okay, there's not really any prep needed for our toppings. We're just going to be using some shredded cheddar, some sour cream, and some chives. Olson wanted some diced red onion on top as well, but I didn't have any on hand. And honestly, he's like cameraman with bacon. He'll put diced red onion on top of almost anything. Just wait till you get to meet Jimmy Buffett and see what his favorite topping is. Other than salt, that is. So now that we have all of our pieces, it's time for step 4. Let's eat. As with all the recipes, you've got to start by laying down a bed of chips. And then we're going to ask our friend Nessie here to ladle us on some chili. Add some shredded cheese and a dollop of sour cream, and maybe a sprinkle of chives. Olson said it would have been better to with fresh chives, but Olson really needs to come up with these little suggestions before I go grocery shopping. And there we have it. This was actually dinner for cameraman and Olson tonight, so let's see how they liked it. They both claimed it was good, however the chips were somewhat disappointing. What little crisp I was able to get on them was lost when covered in chili. So overall, not a complete success, and I wanted to show you that. I didn't want to be the type of channel that makes you think that everything always turns out perfect and then have you disappointed when you try the same thing and it doesn't work. My favorite video by my favorite creator is actually the story of a video that just went terribly wrong. So I promise you'll get to see my failures. Let's just hope there's not too many of them. I've got another recipe coming in the summer that I was hoping to use cornbread chips for as well. So cross your fingers that I can improve on these. Well, that's all for this week. I hope you enjoyed it. If so, give it a like and please consider subscribing if you want to see more nacho videos. If you have an idea for a future video, you can leave a comment below, or better yet, tag me on Twitter. I'm at NachoProblemsYT. Now, if you'll excuse me, that annoying little Duolingo bird is harassing me about my Welsh lesson, but that may or may not be Nacho Problem. Thanks for watching.